We are live.
We're totally live.
Yeah, that took about 7 seconds of my life away. So I am here with some gadget guy. It's 12:37 in the morning, or aka 9:37 p.m. on the West Coast. Or if
Yeah,
you
this is how we do on the West Coast, son.
or if you
What?
if you're in Australia
Yeah.
watching, it is early in the morning. So how's it going, man?
It's going well. We got some cool stuff to talk about, and for once, it's just sort of normal time for me. I didn't have to wake up super early on a Saturday morning just to hang out with you guys. This is amazing. I love it. We should do everything like this, sort of in the early evening, middle evening out on the West Coast. It's pretty much the best time to do anything for me
Sorry, I'm getting sleepy here because it's late. I'm just joking.
personally.
So yeah, we had a lot of news today. If you guys saw the earlier hangout I did, we covered a lot of the Marvel news. But of course, we're going to get Juan's thoughts on those. But first, the main title of this video is discussing the extended trailer for Avengers: Age of Ultron, which just hit with Agents of Shield. And as you probably guessed, none of us actually watched the show to watch it.
I'm sort of an episode behind. I've been sort of passively keeping up with the show, but it's become that fodder that I have on in the background where I'm not really watching. It's just sort of on, and I'm sort of playing with my phone or writing an article or doing something else. But I still have it on the DVR.
It's the same day as The Flash, so I watched The Flash.
Yeah, well, and The Flash is a better show because The
Yeah,
Flash is awesome.
it's The Flash.
Pretty much the best character ever, and
And the show is fun. It's a fun show.
it
So,
is really fun.
but anyway, back to Avengers before we sidetrack ourselves.
We just it's too late for you to go off on tangents because we'll just go and never talk about what this video is supposed to be about.
Okay, so the video
Love
is
it.
about Age of Ultron extended trailer. So I'm going to describe it. I'm having some technical issues here. I don't want to even try and show you guys the trailer because it might just cut off. Who knows? But the trailer basically starts off in the Avengers Tower, and it's a very fun scene. And you see Thor sitting down in his civilian clothes, if you want to call that. He's having a drink in his hand. Captain America is there. Iron Man is there. We have I mean, okay, Tony Stark. We have War Machine also. We have Hawkeye. We have the agent from Shield. I can't remember her, Agent 13, I think. I
Hmm.
just can't remember her name. We have Scarlett Johansson, and we have the Hulk. Now, I'm sorry, Iron Man says, he says something about picking up the hammer, and Thor's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. The hammer's resting on the table, and he says, okay, fine. If I pick up the hammer, I get to rule Asgard. He's like, yeah, no problem. He tries to pick it up, and he's struggling. He like puts his foot on the table, two hands. He tries to pull up, and next minute he's like, "I'll be right back." And it just cuts over to see another scene where he has his Iron Man glove in his left hand. He's pulling and pulling, and he cuts. And next minute it's he and Rhodey, War Machine, with his own War Machine armor in his right hand, and they both pull, and it doesn't budge. It does not even budge. And then it cuts to Captain America, and he pulls it, and it's just the slightest move, and you can see Thor's face kind of go from just a slight, and he had also, it was really cool because he had the slightest reaction, almost like, I'm not gonna acknowledge that, but I kind of will at the same time,
Right.
it's one of those, and then it cuts over to um, the Hulk, Bruce Banner, who points to Scarlett Johansson, and she's like, no, 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 I'm not doing that. And next minute you hear this loud shrieking sound. There is a third woman there. We didn't show her. They didn't show her again in this.
There's just one little flash of her face as we were watching through the
Yeah,
trailer.
and I couldn't see who it was. And also, again, you see her in the when it draws out, and then Ultron
But
walks
she's
in.
sitting there with Hawkeye. So maybe there's a little love connection for Hawkeye going on. It'll.
Now, a lot of people speculated that it might be Carol Danvers
Oh,
before
right on.
she
Yeah, that actually would kind of make sense, but
before she
that ain't return.
becomes, yeah. Anyway, and then Ultron walks in, and he says, "Of course." Oh, sorry. And then before that, Thor picks up the hammer. He says, "Well, it's I know." Iron Man says, "Well, I know why I can't pick it up. It's because it's imprinted with Thor's DNA. Whoever has Thor's DNA picks up the hammer. Our fingerprint picks up the hammer." And Thor gets up and says, "Well, no, it's because you're not all worthy." And he just picks it up and flips it and catches it like it's a feather. And next minute you hear Ultron says, "Yes, you're not all worthy," with that very deep, just flowing James in Spader voice.
Yeah, because James Spader is a badass.
And
He's a
he walks
perfect pick for
in.
Ultron.
Exactly. He walks in and he says the same lines. It's a slightly different camera angle. He crushes the one of the Avenger robots, and then the trailer continues from there as a regular trailer. So, thoughts? Your thoughts on the little extended scene that we saw there?
Well, and I'm just always happy to see that they're continuing to flesh out these characters. That each have their own individual movies, but we're looking at what they mean to each other as a team. But then also it's just kind of a cute way to get us into this story again and kind of remind us what these characters, how these characters relate to each other, in a really sort of organic way without sort of making it overly cloying. Oh, Thor's the Asgardian demigod who's nearly infinitely power, and Hulk, he's the strongest there is. Like if you remember the intro for the animated series, which had to explain the characters to us every single time we watched every single
Yes.
episode of the show. But no, I thought they were great little additions. Again, I'm getting to that point where I might want to start thinking about media blackout. So I'm happy that this trailer didn't spoon feed us more, but it's really just the little cameos and appearances that make me happiest. That you have an Avengers movie, why can't we have a line of dialogue about where War Machine is? You've got a Captain America movie. We should probably explain why Tony Stark can't help him while he's fighting the Winter Soldier. So when we get to Avengers as a tentpole, I mean, the less you have to work to explain why characters aren't there, the better it really is for comics and continuity. And this should be a huge team spectacle of a film. So to see all of those characters on board, to see Rhodey right in the trailer, just is I think a wonderful touch to get us to tease us with what this movie is going to be about.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I liked it. Again, I would say you weren't going to see too much because this was that whole cut. I think was the whole cut that was shown at Comic Con because that scene was described before from the guys who were seeing it at Comic Con
Totally.
all the way through. So at least we've seen a bulk of that Comic Con segment. So 3 minutes of this 2 hour 45-minute movie probably is what's going to be the final cut. I'm just guessing, of course, but I agree with you. I like the dialogue, the intro. I like that it was they still brought some of the fun aspects of the Avengers there, even though it was fun. I guess maybe because we've already seen the trailer before. I was expecting something bad to happen already. Like they were having fun. I was like, okay, so when's the damage gonna happen? When's Ultron gonna walk in? Come on, let's see it. Let's see it. So that aspect. But it was good to see that. I agree with you that they need to continue and they show that connectivity and also continuity between the characters because one thing that if they do not do this, this would be my biggest gripe of this movie. Um, and I just forgot his name now. Captain America's best friend in Captain America 2.
Oh, Falcon?
Falcon. If Falcon does not show up in this movie, this is a huge grievance because, first of all, Falcon says, "I'm with you wherever you go" at the end of the movie. That was just the first thing.
Right.
So if
Well,
if
and,
that
and actually, I'm actually kind of surprised that he hasn't popped up in Agents of Shield. I can understand where you don't have the headliner, you don't have Captain America in there, but even Nick Fury has made an appearance on the show.
yeah, you might want to throw in
I'm kind of
Falcon at
surprised
least
that
once or
Falcon.
twice.
What's that?
I see you might want to throw him once or twice.
That's what I mean. Is like I think he's the perfect crossover character to kind of keep all of the movie and show continuity fresh, but to remind everybody that we're all dealing with the same universe. But if I agree, it's the same thing that bugged me about not having War Machine in the first Avengers film. If Falcon doesn't show up after his turn in Winter Soldier, again, it's you have to waste time. I mean, if your writers can't explain why this superhero team of people aren't working together with all components working, then you kind of have to have a lame piece of dialogue where it's like, oh, well, so and so had to go and fight uh, bad guys in Juarez, so that's why he's not here with us right now. You know, like it's dopey. You know, it doesn't make any sense why he wouldn't be there with the rest of the team.
No, no, I definitely agree with you there. I think it's one of those things that, you know, they're gonna find some excuse to say maybe I'm thinking Falcon will show up because they might throw in a dialogue saying that Falcon was helping Captain America to uncover some what do you call those guys again? Hydra facility somewhere, you know. And
Which
he might,
seems to be what the Captain America franchise is going to be focusing on for because what is the next updated?
then Captain America is called Civil War.
Well, no, Civil War is next, but isn't there? Oh, I've got like an older Phase 3 diagram
Yeah, yeah,
where
it's Civil War.
with Serpent Society at some
Yeah,
point. Never mind.
yeah,
But yeah, Civil War is where we're going in 2016.
well, I mean, that's the thing. I think what probably the one thing they might do is that maybe what's his name? Falcon will show up next year doing Agent of Shield or at some point. So it looks like it's you know, while he was at the show, you know, events in Avengers happen, something like that,
Hmm.
you know, that kind of thing. So that could make sense. But for extended trailer, it was nice. Now I'm looking here. Lou Rod says the scene was on the show was different from the one shot at the earlier Marvel panel. I don't think so because the exact thing I saw was the exact thing that was explained to me, unless that person saw something early.
Well, and then also, I mean, what we could
Oh,
be talking
different
about
camera
is
angles.
edit of the same scene.
Yeah, true. That
I mean,
is
because again, what they're willing to show at Comic Con is very different than what you would actually cut a trailer off of. So I mean, we could be talking about sort of a similar concept,
on this.
but the execution being different, or maybe cleaned up or a little tighter, or maybe even a little looser, letting them play or banter a little bit more.
Yeah,
Especially as you've got probably a ton of footage to cut from when you're looking at all the scenes that were probably shot between all of those characters being in the room together.
true. And then Lou Rod says, "Do you think Mockingbird is sitting with Hawkeye?"
Oh,
Mockingbird.
that's a good call. That's
Mm,
actually a pretty good call too, Lurad.
I hope not. That's just a useless character to throw in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And next one is from Lou Rod again. The
Oh
show.
wait, no, it probably isn't because isn't that's Adri what's her name? Adrienne Padalecki?
And she's blonde. She's
Padalecki?
blonde as Mockingjay. Yeah.
No, but she's already on Agents of Shield. So that she her character was just introed a week ago, so it's probably not Mockingbird.
Okay. There we go. The show is good. It's better than the first season. I enjoy all the shows on TV, but Gotham is really boring. Actually, I would take Gotham any day of the week over Agent Shield.
I don't know. For me, it's kind of a toss up because I'm kind of curious where Gotham can go. They're introducing so many of these classic Batman villains, but they're all sort of teases because you know that they can't actually be in the show until we have Batman.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah.
you're sort of we're
Um,
sort of in limbo. Like we know what's coming. We know what
I,
the hook
I,
is. We
I
know what these
think
characters do.
I think the mistake they made, and they can still rectify it. I think they should go continue the story of either Penguin. I mean, the one with Penguin is fine. I like the fact that it's yeah. I always consider Penguin older than Batman anyway in my head. So
Yeah, totally.
I I love the Penguin side, and I also love the fact with Fish Mooney. If you can take those
Mhm.
storylines and see them rise, and then Penguin fall again, that's great. You can just run with that, and then keep the Batman villains at a sparse pace.
But we already have the Riddler in there, and we already have these sort of proto villains that aren't
Yeah.
quite fully realized Batman villains, and so there's some really interesting stuff happening. But Gotham, I think, started out with a much stronger pilot and a much stronger opening
That
storyline
most shows, yeah.
than most shows did. But now I kind of feel like you really have to work to flesh out this world because we're all waiting for what we know to be coming. You know, the realization of Batman as a character, but this is also really more um, Commissioner Gordon's storyline.
Yeah.
But it's also not Batman Year One. You know, it's not that flavor of Commissioner Gordon that
That
we've
is
seen
that is
before he
very
was
true.
the commissioner. You know, and especially what we saw a little bit of with Gary Oldman. in the Christopher Nolan films.
films. Now, okay, so before we're getting sidetracked, I know, but let's talk about your thoughts on the different Marvel movies coming out. So, first off, I'll give you the movies and you can give me your thoughts on them. So
Okay.
the first movie, which of course we know it's Captain America, but it now has a new title, Civil War.
Hmm.
So what do you think about, now they're just clearly coming out of the Civil War now to add some more to that? Kevin Feige said the seeds for Civil War will be sown pretty much in Avengers Age of Ultron. And at the end of this movie, also, the team roster will change. That's all he said. So bearing that in mind, what do you think?
Well, from a storyline perspective, I'm stoked. Sign me up. Civil War, one of my all-time. It's like Civil War and Maximum Carnage are like my two favorite massive comic book crossover series that Marvel has ever done. So as long as you can execute some flavor of what we saw in Civil War, of course, omitting all of the impact that the X-Men had in that storyline, and then finding a way to possibly cross-license Spider-Man because you do need a Spider-Man like character
Hmm.
in Civil War for it to really be Civil War. Um, that's a pretty big if, but I'm totally on board. I'm super stoked to see what they might do with it, especially following all of the carnage and destruction that we've seen in all of these individual Marvel films. Like I think it's the right time, it's the right temperament. I think we're also getting a little we're dangerously close to approaching burnout and oversaturation on superhero flicks. So I think a little reflection of what would maybe be a bit more grounded response or a bit more human response. And hey, we're kind of tired of New York getting blown up every other year. How about you superpowered people stop fighting battles in highly populated areas? Like I think that's the right place to take the temperament of a few of these films. Before we kind of keep going down the line, though, I'm a little surprised that all of the stuff that we're hearing, like Age of Ultron, is coming out next year,
Yeah.
but next year is actually going to be really lean. Like that 2015 is going to have Ultron,
And
Ant-Man,
Ant-Man, that's it.
but isn't also the Fantastic Four reboot coming out
Yeah, Fantastic Four. I
in
mean,
2015?
yeah, sorry, I was counting just the
Like
Marvel
maybe,
ones.
but
No,
yeah, but that's
right.
what I mean is like I think that might be it. I don't know if there are any other. It's just those
That's
three.
those three. Yeah, that's
But
it.
then like 2016 brings us
Into the behemoth.
yeah, I mean, like every movie coming out in 2016 apparently is a comic book film.
Yeah, it
So that's just kind of what I find a little curious is Age of Ultron sets us up for Civil War. I'm not entirely sure where Ant-Man fits into this equation because Hank Pym was the character in the comics responsible for Ultron.
See, this is why I was talking to Sam earlier. This is my problem with the storyline, and no matter how they execute it, I would still probably have a problem with this, because I think what it like, and Sam had a good point. He said making Iron Man the villain. Sorry, Iron Man the villain. Yeah, technically with Civil War makes
Hmm.
sense for this Marvel Cinematic Universe, but also it makes Iron Man a very useless character for one reason. Think about it. His first movie, right? He sold weapons, so he caused
Hmm.
wars. His second movie, he let his tech get stolen, and he caused more damage. And then,
Right.
I mean, Avengers not so much. And then you're now gonna have him create Ultron tech by default, right? He's causing more damage, and then he's also causing more. So it's almost like everything Iron Man touches is not gold, is destruction. And, so to me, it's almost you're really riding that character through and through and through. So that's one of the things that like if you had a Hank Pym, that would make sense. But since his story, basically Hank Pym is played by Michael Douglas, so that is completely out of the window. And I can't
Right.
remember who actually is Iron Man, the name of the character. But I don't know how it ties. They said it does tie in. Maybe there might be a mention of Ant-Man in the movie also, just to maybe some tech from Ant-Man was
Yeah, I
found by
mean, I'm
Tony
really
Stark.
thinking you've got to have some introduction of the character in Age of Ultron. But again, you start running into some of the fears that I've had with Batman Superman is if you're trying to set the stage too much, if you're trying to introduce too much, if you have to do too much exposition, then you actually compromise the story. We care a little bit less about all of the origin stories these days. We kind of like getting into what these characters are about, less where these characters came from, especially with some of these less consumer popular characters. Like really before the Iron Man movie, Iron Man was sort of a mid-tier character.
Yeah.
He never had the kind of recognition that a Batman or a Superman had, obviously. But even opposite, some like a Spider-Man, one of the most beloved characters of all time, Fantastic Four. I think if you were to just randomly poll any person off the street, I think a number of people would be able to tell you loosely Peter Parker's backstory. I don't think many at all would be able to give you any information on who Hank Pym is.
Is no one will, so, or even Atman in general. So that's why, for me, like, as much as you say that, like, I actually, now that I've seen Marvel's plan, I am very happy with what DC is doing, because they're doing two things in my mind. They're addressing what Marvel is just addressing now, with all the death tolls and killing they've had in the movies, till Civil War. Civil War will be probably the first time they address that in some form or fashion. DC is already addressing it in Batman vs Superman, with Superman protests and all that kind of stuff. And then the other part is also the introduction of characters. Now, Marvel's done a good job introducing characters, especially, and they do their introduction mostly with post-credit scenes or light mentions. They do,
Totally.
like, they mentioned Doctor Strange in Captain America,
Mm-hmm.
loosely, so things like that. But in this movie, it looks like they might do more than that. So I want to see how that. I'm skeptical, but I think they can handle. I want to see how they will bring all those characters in Avengers.
Well, and obviously, I mean, I think Marvel's biggest challenge is in expanding, because this is actually, and this is what I wanted to bring up before we went on to talk about the rest of the lineup, but it was
Yeah,
a comment that Lou Rod just posted, is that they're also running into the contracts for these actors to continue playing these characters.
yeah,
So they're literally running out of movies that they can keep these actors on the hook for. And I mean, you look at a performer like Chris Evans, who, after attaining some fame and some notoriety, doesn't really seem like his heart's in performing at this stage anymore. It doesn't really seem like this is what he wants to continue doing with his life. So, you have a finite amount of material that you can throw at these performers before it's time for them to move on and cover other things,
hmm
which in Marvel, I think less so in DC. I think we get a little spikier with DC properties, but Marvel is really running with this notion of changing up, introducing a black Captain America, playing with gender, and introducing a female Thor. Like they have the potential to push their mythology a little bit further than I think DC does. And I think that's also, I mean, we want to say owing to the popularity of DC's characters, it's really hard to walk away from Bruce Wayne as Batman.
yeah, yeah.
It's really, I mean, you really can't. Clark Kent is Superman, vice
It's
versa.
close.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And Wonder Woman is, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I think in DC's case, what they probably want to do, because I mean, according to just some of the rumors I've heard, is that they're introducing the Green Lantern Corps, and they want to use that as more of their more expanded franchise. Because it's such a rotating cast, and you can tell whatever story you really want to do at that point in there. But you're right with the fact that, yeah, with DC, it's set in stone. There's some things that, I mean, until maybe we're like 80, and then we'll be the ones saying, no, you cannot change Bruce Wayne from that. That is so wrong. And you'd be like,
right.
Grams, keep quiet. It's okay. You know. So anyway, let's move on to the next movie. So we know there's Avengers, and then we know there's Ant-Man, but the next one on the slate is, if I'm not mistaken, will be Doctor Strange. November of
Yeah,
2016.
the next Marvel, but 2016 is pretty jam packed.
Impact
Next, I mean, if we want to stick with just the Disney Marvels, then yeah, Doctor Strange is gonna launch in November.
of 2016. So what do you think about that? And also Benedict Cumberbatch starring.
So, what is the ethnicity of Doctor Strange in the comics?
I really do not know.
I wasn't able to tell, and I saw a whole slate of really spiky, angry tweets on my Twitter page that I felt bad because like obviously people were getting frustrated about something, but it was this notion of Benedict Cumberbatch starting to become the English actor that you can cast if you want to whitewash a character. And I
No,
was really
no, no.
trying to rack my brain like what racial background was Doctor Strange? I thought he was white.
Yeah, whoever.
Now, I mean, you can get maybe a little cranky about him playing Khan after Khan was originally portrayed by a person of Hispanic descent, I guess. I mean, Ricardo Montalban was was an amazing performer and was obviously not white. But to say that because he was Khan and then now he's going to be playing Doctor Strange is now a consistent pattern of behavior. I just have to take a couple people to task on Twitter for
Yeah,
drumming up a controversy that I don't think needs to be there.
that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist.
But how I really feel about the film is I am stupid excited with Benedict Cumberbatch as the casting choice for Doctor Strange because I think he's going to bring a creepy, intense intellectualism to the role. I mean, he could walk in there and just basically rip off his performance as Sherlock Holmes for all I care. I mean, you have me on board with casting him as a smart and somewhat menacing figure. I'm sold. I'm totally sold.
Yeah, no, that's the one that I actually didn't want him to take. And like I said, I've always said I wanted him as Brainiac,
Well,
and
especially after listening to his voice work
work exactly
in
in
The Hobbit.
Small. Yeah, as
Yeah.
Small. And the other thing too is that he's a great actor. I know he would do well, but for some reason, I'm not too keen on him playing Doctor Strange. I was actually keen on the person I actually wanted was either Jared Leto.
Really?
Yeah, just because
Doctor Strange?
I wanted to see something completely different, or Joaquin Phoenix, just because I know he's just a little off in my mind.
No, I mean, no. I mean, again, it's about finding performers who can deliver sort of a stoic intensity. So I actually could see a Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, Jared Leto
Um,
was like my outside of like I know he can bring it.
right.
I wanted to see something different, but so that he could go to Brainiac. But I'm fine with it. It was just one of those things. I was like, I guess you can do a DC animated. That's pretty much it now. That's it done completely. So, but it's a solid choice. Moving on from that, the next one is I'm looking here. I'm actually viewing on
Yeah,
my
I'm actually trying to pull it up right now too because there's a
um, May 15th,
because
Guardians of the Galaxy 2,
in 2017.
2017 of
Let's just see. So we've got Civil War and Doctor Strange in
oh, sorry,
2016.
sorry. It's called Serpent Society. Then why did they also call it Civil War? Okay,
See, that's what I mean. Is like I've seen two different title cards for
yeah,
Captain
Captain
America,
America.
but
Okay, who knows? All right.
but Serpent Society looks like it might be the more current title, but I still think we're building towards the Civil War
Yeah, because they released a banner that
storyline.
said Civil War also. So I don't know. Anyway, let's get.
But yeah, so I mean like but what's actually going down in 2016 is Deadpool is going to drop in February.
February, which
Batman
is
versus
actually
Superman in March.
March. Yeah,
Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse in May.
May.
We're getting Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers is
Yeah, they're very
is
keen on Suicide Squad.
and a very interesting comic property to bring to the big screen. But I hope it fits into the flavor of films like Red. Like I
Well,
thought Red was a fantastic movie.
the
So if we can
director
kind of
of that said it's going to be oh God, what crime movie did he mention? Something like it's going to be similar to Magnificent Seven in his mind, the director of
yeah
Fury. So if it's
yeah.
that, I
Oh,
am
I'm super stoked. Yeah.
yeah.
And then after Doctor Strange is when we're also getting the sort of anti Spider-Man story, Sinister Six,
Six.
also in November too. Which, again, if we can play. I mean, if Captain America Serpent Society slash Civil War, whatever it is is following in the Civil War timeline, and we've got Sinister Six on tap, and they can work out any kind of cross licensing deal to have Spider-Man pop up in one of these films, that is the perfect property to launch because it's going to continue that discussion of rampant destruction in New York City that we're all getting tired of.
Exactly. So I agree with you there. But Guardians of the Galaxy was moved up to um, May
May.
5th
Yeah.
on which I think is fine. I think they didn't really mention that, but we figure it's going to continuation of that storyline. The next movie on that list is July is Thor Ragnarok. Now, what are your
Ragnarok.
thoughts on that? Because I gave mine, and I'm very skeptical because the last Thor movie just didn't. It's fun to a certain degree, but it just did not sit well with
Yeah,
me.
no. What is it? Thor: The Dark World?
Yeah, the Dark World.
Is
Yeah,
that what it? Yeah. So the Thor films to me are I still think are Marvel's weakest link. The whole fantasy sci-fi crossover. It's knights in armor with laser blasters.
yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, in the comics too. I'm not really being fair because Thor has never been a comic property that I've ever particularly been excited by. The whole mythology with science fiction. I liked Dark World for it introducing a flavor of sci-fi fantasy that maybe other films like Dune can inspire some fun fandom with.
Mhm.
But what I think, I mean, especially owing to the title Ragnarok, if we start to see that as the winding down of the Thor that we're seeing in the film, so that we can then move into the pair of Avengers films, the Infinity Wars.
Yeah.
And so you give Thor one last movie as sort of his standalone send off. And then that takes us into Infinity Wars, and that's where we're probably going to be saying goodbye to Thor and Captain America as mainstay uh, characters,
Yeah.
especially with these actors' contracts coming up and coming to a close. Then that's really all I'm expecting out of Ragnarok. I'm not expecting it to move the Marvel universe forward. In fact, if anything, it should be something of a goodbye. And if that's all that we're expecting the film to be, then I think we can keep expectations in check for that to be a solid on the rails sci-fi fantasy action flick, and that's fine. That's all I really need it to be.
Okay. Because I mean Ragnarok has two story points I think in the comic books. One is the clone in Civil War that was made, the Thor clone, eventually took the name Ragnarok.
Right.
So in my mind I'm thinking, is this where Hank Pym comes in, and does Iron Man actually get Pym to help him
Well,
clone Thor?
and being that that's a major component of the Civil War storyline.
Yeah, because he basically, if you haven't read the comic book, spoiler, the clone kills off a smaller character, but he kills off someone. This is first time a superhero, in that setting, killed off another superhero, so to speak.
Mhm.
So, really pissed everyone off at this point. So, I'm sure they're going to change that stuff, but will that happen, or will be Ragnarok where they're talking about the connection between Thor and the higher gods in the comic books, or like somebody said, will Thor have Odin's powers at this point? Is that his send off where he now elevates? He kicks Loki off the throne, and then he becomes Odin himself, or
Right.
gets Odin powers, so to speak. So that might be it there with that one. So we have that, and then moving on to let's see,
Well,
2000,
Black Panther, November 3rd.
November 3rd, Black Panther here with starring Chadwick Boseman, who I said should be Black Panther. So
Yep.
yes,
You totally called that one.
yes, I called it because they didn't send me my contract in time for me to sign. Just saying, I can do
You
that.
got to talk to your agent about that one.
I can do that African accent pretty well, man. Serious. I've been working at the gym. Serious. I mean, I may not be able to do flips, but I can rock that, Black Panther suit pretty good. I feel that. I
So do
just
you think they're going to try and lock Chadwick into the same 10 picture deal that they've been working with
five.
the other
He's signed for
five?
five. Yeah. So he signed for five, and it looks like it's five. And one of those. I mean, to me, it's one of those things where I would like to see how this one flesh out. We know that now pretty much you can confirm that Ulysses Claw is in Avengers because that he looks like him anyway from the comic books, and also
Hmm.
Ultron needs vibranium from somewhere. So
Totally.
that's the best bet. But I want to see how they see. I want the Black Panther movie to not take place in the U.S. at all. Exact. That also helps from having all that destruction in New York City. By the way,
Well, and also I think it would be nice just to see what, because I mean we got a little taste of it in Thor because
yeah,
Dark World didn't land on U.S. shores, so it's sort of
and it
their
wasn't.
excuse
Yeah,
as to why they couldn't get Shield to go and
no, no,
help.
no, no. Shield just didn't answer the phone call. That's it.
Right. But I mean, it's like, no, it's happening over in England. They can deal with it.
Yeah,
But it's but I think it would be nice to start pushing some of these films a bit more global in the sense that this whole age of the superhero in this world in this timeline is affecting more than just the United States.
yeah,
So even if it doesn't take place exclusively in Wakanda, if it's more of like I really want more of like an Indiana Jones style film, you know? You have to take your actors to like six different countries to do principal photography, and you can't really recreate that sense of adventure just on green screens and just walking around New York City and Los Angeles. You actually
yeah.
do have to go and adventure. You have to go and explore.
There's a
And
reason why Game of Thrones is so awesome because they are set in three countries.
oh well, and I mean, like, there are so many films that have done that amazingly well. There's a film called The Fall,
Yes.
directed by Tarsem, who did The Cell, and there's one montage sequence where it's this group that's traveling in this story, and I think in the montage they did photography in 20 different countries
Yeah.
just to do this montage sequence, let alone all of the other amazing places that the director takes you to. And you go back and watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you're like, that movie will forever hold up. There's nothing about that film that's going to age gracelessly because when they need to go to some ancient place, they go to some ancient place.
Yeah.
Like the only sequence that starts to feel a little overly claustrophobic and maybe not as well fleshed out are sequences at the end that were obviously shot on sound stages, and that's where the movie doesn't look as nice by today's
Nice.
standards. But when
Yeah.
when you're trekking around the globe and you're in these dungeons and caverns and stuff, most of the film actually takes place in those. So sorry, talk about me, you going off on tangents.
No, I was looking I was looking at the timelines there, but no, I do agree with you with that. I would love to see that, and yeah, I want to see what kind of storyline they build out there. I think what they need to do is really stress how independent Wakanda is. And Wakanda is known to be independent, so which is why we didn't see T'Challa till now. Maybe because Ultron basically has invaded his land in some form or fashion by getting vibranium through what's
Which
his name?
also I think makes him a fun foil for the Avengers too, because
Yeah,
if he is motivated to leave Wakanda, he's not going to be happy with Tony Stark.
yeah,
you
exactly.
know. So again, like, we've had those really fun showdowns, the Iron Man, Thor, Captain America fight. We should see Black Panther scrapping with the Avengers, probably a little bit more than helping them.
Them, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, that's very, very true. The next one in May 4th, 2018 is Avenger Infinity Wars Part Uno.
Well, and we're finally getting back to Thanos, right?
Yes, finally get back to Thanos. They showed a little teaser of Thanos holding the Infinity Gauntlet in his hand. So, um, yeah, it's finally getting back to Thanos there. And at this point, we're going to probably see a different team, or at least two teams, maybe, or the teams come back together and deal with this big problem. And then Captain America is killed. That ends his plan there. Thor might either be killed or he will use Odin power to try and slow him down, or something like that. I'm just speculating all sorts of rubbish here.
Well, and we're also we have to clarify too, is like we're talking about a movie that probably won't even start shooting for what, 3 years, 2 years,
3 years.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
Because we're talking about something that's going to release in May of 2018. And this is where I do get, because we talked about this a little bit off air, this is where I get a little nervous about us approaching burnout or oversaturation on comic book movies and comic book films. But if they can hold to a really solid two-part storyline, which introduces a new Avengers crew, while we also get to say goodbye to some of the classic Avengers like Captain America and Thor, then we've got something really interesting to happen because we can also bridge with Guardians of the Galaxy at the same time.
Yeah, I think that the problem they will face is like any team up faces is likability, and especially when you're switching crews. You know, what I mean,
Right.
it's like in my mindset, and also as a comic book fan, like whatever team they switch it up to is called Team B because they're not even that powerful, unless maybe Hulk remains. That's pretty much it. But uh,
Well, and I still think, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it was also kind of curious that we didn't see because we still have to talk about films that are slated for 2019 and 2020.
yeah.
But I also thought it was really interesting that Marvel made no concrete plans for a Hulk film or a Black Widow film.
Yeah, they actually
That
stated that. He said, but he said specifically, he said those characters work very well in the team up, and there are no current plans for that at this point in time.
Well, and they were also because he responded very very pointedly to rumors about maybe doing a Black Widow prequel film, and that the major focus for Disney Marvel is to push forward. That they're not looking at where these characters have come from. They really want to move this storyline forward, which I can respect. Even though especially after Winter Soldier, Black Widow has just continued to build a fan base,
Base, yeah.
and she's such an enigmatic character that I think she could make a really interesting standalone film. But that means that there's opportunities for diversified media. Like I would love to see. I mean, because we've seen a Planet Hulk animated film,
Yeah.
but a Planet Hulk live action film following the events of an Infinity Wars could be really interesting and might be one of the only opportunities that I could think of where we fleshed out the character enough. Because I think the Hulk also suffers from just sort of a, what do you do with him? He gets angry and he smashes things. Like
Mhm.
once we have fleshed out the character to a point where we actually care about what happens to him, and we can write a story that's more nuanced than just he's stronger than the thing that he has to fight. And we know he's stronger because Hulk's the strongest there is. So, that's not really interesting storytelling. Like you don't get to the end of the Edward Norton Hulk film going, "Oh no, what's going to happen?"
Yeah.
Because he's going to beat Abomination.
See, but
Like that's just going to happen.
but the thing, if you're ever going to work up to that level of a Planet Hulk, Hulk needs to learn how to talk.
Oh, but I think you have the opportunity. That's what I mean is like we're talking about a film that they wouldn't even begin to be able to
The
produce until 2020.
2020, yeah, I agree, yeah.
You know,
So yeah,
so there's plenty of opportunity, especially like through the Infinity Wars, that maybe Hulk does something or messes up, and that Tony Stark has to send him away. And then you could just let the character sit for 2 years and
yes,
then come back to revitalize because at some point you're also going to have to do little mini comic book style reboots along the way to
yeah.
reintroduce
So
elements or to
now
bring
the
in new
thing
elements.
with the Avengers Infinity Wars is that is this going to be we know it's Thanos, right? We all know that, but will this be Thanos against the Avengers Team A, B, and Guardians of the Galaxy? Or will it just be Avengers and Guardians, or will it just be Avengers Team A and B? I mean, it could be multitude of individuals at this point.
Well, but then also because we know that they're working on what is it,
Inhumans.
Inhumans, yeah, in 2018, that we've got a bridge film in between the two different Avengers films with Inhumans. So I think what we'll be looking at by the time we get to Avengers Infinity War Part 2 in 2019,
Hmm.
that'll probably be another massive tentpole film. And we'll probably be pulling from every single Disney Marvel property that we've got access to as we move from classic Avengers to new Coke Avengers. And I would be shocked if, especially with the first Guardians of the Galaxy focusing on an Infinity Stone if we don't see the Guardians pop up as well.
Okay. I mean, that is true. It's just interesting, and it's interesting looking at both approaches. Like I'm looking at this, and I remember DC's approach, and DC off the bat is throwing its team like immediately. They're like, and to me it makes sense because they're late, so you can't be
Right.
doing introductions and stuff like that. You use your main characters to introduce other people, and then you just like hit the ground running. And then they have all these other stories down the line. With like so for instance, basically DC's 2019 would be Shazam will be going up against that as well
Yeah.
as I believe Flash, if I'm not mistaken. No, Flash is 2017,
No, Flash is 2018.
18. So it would be
Yeah.
Shazam and then
2019 is Shazam and Justice League 2.
wow,
The not titled, rumored second Justice League film.
wow, that's going to be very jam-packed.
Well, but I mean, I actually don't think so. I actually think that as we're getting around, what we have to be worried about are actually some of the outliers. Like we don't know release dates on the rumored Sandman film. We don't have release dates for their Fox is looking at Gambit and
And
X Force as
X-Force,
separate
yeah.
properties. So we also might be able to wedge in standalone Superman and Batman films throughout all of this too. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past DC to try a Green Lantern reboot
No, no,
along the
they
way
no, there
also.
is a Green Lantern. Green Lantern is
Where's Green Lantern?
2020.
Oh, that's at the end of the list. They did
Yes.
announce a Green
Yeah,
Lantern.
2020.
So along that way, when we're talking about the film lineup in 2019, we also only have the one properly announced Marvel film. And
Yeah.
we know Marvel likes to try and do 2 films a year.
Yeah, exactly.
So Infinity War might be an outlier. Disney might be looking at the performance of all these films going through 2020 and actually putting the franchise to rest for a little bit. Like they might not release a second Marvel film
Film,
in
yeah.
2019.
Well, what I've heard on the Disney side is that their the way they're doing it is that they want stories. They want, Marvel has these events and it's separated. DC is everything started at Man of Steel. And that story is it's almost like they're doing it the same way they do Infinity Crisis in the comic books. Like that story breeds all the way out and then the story ends.
Right.
And their second phase is actually um, uh, Sandman is not DC directly. Is it Vertigo or is Vertigo Comics?
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah,
Warner Bros. has
yeah,
the
one,
property.
yeah, yeah. The second batch is Vertigo Comics, so it's the comics that are, from what I heard, it's Sandman, but things that don't really feel like comic book movies.
Right.
So that they can, especially like the Reds and things like that, so that they can actually push a different style of property and then do reboots, and they can come back to Superman and Batman after that is done. So they're looking at a slightly different strategy where they're interjecting a set of comic book movies that are completely different from their very first, first batch. So
Totally.
it'll be interesting to see how those pair
Well,
out. But
and also I think Disney needs to be careful here because we have a couple comments in the Q&A that I want to get
yes,
to also. But I think Disney needs to be careful here because at the same time that they're doing all of this Marvel work, that's not their only franchise.
yeah,
They're also going to have to start positioning Star Wars opposite some of these films too, which there's plenty of money to go around for movie season, but it's why I get cranky and it's why I get nervous because if only a couple of these films start underperforming, that's when I think we'll see studios start really sucking all the wind out of the sails for future comic book films.
hmm
Again, it's the business side of this which is going to burn us fans if
you see,
expectations can't stay
it's the
unrealistically high.
See, I think this is why DC went with their own approach of Justice League Forward first, because it
Mhm.
makes more sense to if you have characters, say Cyborg was not well received, he was liked but not well received, you don't make a Cyborg movie, you just don't even do it
Right.
at all. you skip it. If Green Lantern,
But
now
I think that's
becomes
only owing to the fact that the DC characters historically have more recognizable team members on Justice League
Justice League.
than the Avengers do separately. And so I think Marvel's strategy in positioning each character for its own film and making kick-ass movies that finally explain what this character is all about has served them well because, again, I think before the Iron Man films came out, if you had sort of asked someone what's Iron Man all about, they would have been a little fuzzy. It's a guy in a suit, I think. He's got like laser hands, I guess,
Yeah,
and he can
exactly. Yeah.
fly. So it wouldn't have been quite as surefire a success, but they landed a coup with landing Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
sort of revitalizing his career, and that got many more people on board than I think they would have been able to get with an unknown actor in the role. So I think pushing Justice League first with DC Comics makes sense because I don't need to see Superman's origin story again. I really don't. Even Man of Steel. Like I just
That was fine. Come on. It was 15
no.
minutes.
50, no, it wasn't because they had to do it twice. They have to explain everything about what happened to Krypton in the film twice.
Ah, come on. It
And
was
like they get to
fine.
the whole, wait a minute, what's Lois Lane gonna do? Oh, okay, well this is the part where Jor-El explains to Lois Lane what happened. So we don't need to see. No, they're actually gonna show us all of this all over again. Yes, Zod and the war, and now it's in these cool little animatic things that.
Oh, he explained it to Clark. Yeah, that was it. He didn't explain to Lewis. Lewis,
Oh, that's right.
he
But
only,
also that's
he only
even worse. But you couldn't have cut away. You actually had to show us again. Anyway, we don't need to get into that because we all know that I am not a fan of Man of Steel. So that's
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. You just have bad taste. Anyway, to the questions. Lou Rod says Chadwick signed for 5 movies, starting with
yeah,
Captain.
he did.
Okay. And then he says, the next comment from Lou Rod says, and most likely bring Unity to the team to fight Thanos. Who would most likely bring Unity to the team to fight Thanos?
I think he was still talking about Black Panther at
Okay.
that point.
All right.
But because he also because we commented on this before, but Lou Rod also brought up the fact that the roster has to change because we're talking about the end of the different contracts
Contracts,
for
yeah.
each of these performers.
That is very true. Let me see. Think about this season will still be in play when the movie comes out. That is true. In reference to that silly show.
Agents of Shield,
Yes. Sorry.
the silly show.
Silly show. The first Captain America banner was a troll for the crowd. It's going to be Civil War. Okay. All right.
Although I'm glad to hear it because Serpent Society is the worst movie title ever. So whoever did that, good job.
Yeah. This is from Mike Bird. He said, one thing I feel they need to do is not to try and make all these films so kid-friendly. When it comes to something like Deadpool and that kind of character, his fans want to see him in his real likeness. I definitely agree with Deadpool on
Yeah,
that one.
totally agree. And it's the same thing that we had issues. At some point, I would love to see another director tackle Spawn.
Yeah.
Like to give us a proper Spawn and Deadpool are NC-17 characters. I don't feel that there's anything wrong with giving us a rated R film involving those characters. And I think Spawn's first movie appearance was just way too early in the comic books are for kids era of filmmaking that not only were you guaranteed an R just because you're dealing with the devil, and it's hell and it's icky, that what they had to do to get the PG-13 just absolutely destroyed that film.
Yeah. Mike Barrett says, I thought Doctor Strange was Italian or something. Maybe Italian American.
No, I haven't been able to find what. Because, okay, so Doctor Strange represents one of those. He's already a little bit of a whitewashed character, right? He's dealing with all of this mysticism and all of this magic. And he kind of comes from an era of storytelling when we were just getting out of, like, for example, zombieism. In the late 60s, George Romero makes Night of the Living Dead, and zombie films move from being about blaxploitation, the evil voodoo magic that can corrupt our white women, and like enslave them, and into full-on rotting corpses. And so Doctor Strange kind of comes out just at the tail end of that transformation of media and culture when evil mysticism and the dark arts could also have been a reference to the dark skin color of the people who practice evil magic and arts like that. So he's already kind of suspect in that era of storytelling. It's like when we have a character like the Mandarin, and he's just the most grotesque stereotype for an Iron Man villain, and
Hmm.
people were upset that they walked away from the movie.
I,
You
I
can't.
was I was
I
upset
know
too.
you were, but you
Uh,
can't. You can't with a straight face do a character like the Mandarin.
yes, you can.
No, you can't. He's gonna end up
Yes.
looking like Big Trouble in Little China,
No, no,
and,
no, no,
and
no, you
not
can't. No, no,
be.
you can't. You have an Asian actor, aka he's Asian British actor.
No,
Okay.
I know what
I'm
you mean,
sorry.
but I'm just saying
Yeah.
you already have to walk away from the portrayal of the character in the comics. It's already sort of a black eye in
Okay.
terms
No,
of
no.
Marvel and race relations from
Then don't
years
use
of
him
media.
as a villain. Simply don't.
But that's why they did what they did.
No,
It's
no,
because
no, no.
they didn't
No,
use him
see, you see how you have,
they
remember how you have
completely
issues
hamstrung him,
with
and
Man
it's
of
it's
Steel? This is the same kind of issue. Don't use him as a villain. Just say it's AIM and be done with. Call it AIM and done.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could, but I also think it was the director and the writer's commentary on how ridiculous a character the Mandarin was. So they made him a ridiculous character in the
No,
film.
but see, but that then that's a
It's a little too meta. It doesn't have anything to do with storytelling. It's
yeah,
it's a
exactly.
little we're all in on the joke, and it's really self-aware. And I'm not saying it was the most graceful
No, it was the
application,
most
but
stupid thing they could do because they did a
was
disservice to the fact.
not
No, no,
the
no.
most stupid.
It
I
was
don't
the
know if
most
you saw
stupid
Iron
because
Man
they
2.
okay. Oh God. I mean, you're just taking me back now. Like, okay, let's jump on to the next. Mike Bird says, how far before Batman in Gotham? That's not gonna happen.
I'm with you, Mike, because I want something to happen in that show, and I think Commissioner Gordon is such an amazing character in the comics. He's such an interesting character. I mean, he's a detective, obviously, in the comics right now. That I think they actually did a disservice by putting in too many Batman teasers.
Yes, exactly. They did.
With Catwoman and with Penguin and with Riddler, because now we want to see those characters. I want to see Riddler. I am desperate to see a modern day portrayal of Riddler.
You see, on that show, right? I think if they kept it at Catwoman, Bruce, and Penguin, that's it. That's where I
Well, but
mean,
then also I think they rushed Penguin's introduction.
yeah, they did. They really did.
Because I mean, basically, it's like the second scene he's in. He's like, "And people call me the Penguin," and you're like, "Oh God, could have you could have slow played that for at least an episode, guys."
Yeah, I know,
Just
I
one.
know. And then we have let me see. I think he already said that he's retiring from acting. He will be
Oh,
directing
Mirjani's
more
talking about Chris Evans,
after
and
his.
she's right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. He did.
so
Sorry.
Chris Evans has already made it pretty public that he is not looking at being a performer anymore, and that he's kind of
Eh, he
reserving his last outings for these Marvel films.
he will come back. They always do.
I kind of hope he just finds whatever makes him happy.
Yeah, yeah. I know.
You know, I,
I think he needs to go and do something else, and
yeah.
then you know and then find his way back if he needs to.
If
Lou,
and it really is a situation where like if he needs to, Chris Evans has become a performer that I admire a lot, especially for how public he's been in discussing some of the trappings of his own success. And I know a lot of people will criticize and say, "Oh, well, he's a famous movie star. How rough can his life be?" But I really genuinely don't believe that that's what he signed up to be when he wanted to be a performer. And so, if that means he has to walk away from being a performer so that he can get his mind right, so that he can get healthy, if he can get whatever it is that he needs to get, that's fine. Because it would be a real bummer if he took a turn and went someplace really dark because he was still trying to give us films that we wanted to see him in.
yeah, true. Lurod says thoughts on a Krypton show. There's rumors of a Krypton show. Um, I mean, we know how that one ends.
Again, DC with the let's make a show where we all know where it's gonna go, but we have to tease it out for as long as possible. Um,
No, no. See, if you do a Krypton show, right, it cannot be Jor-El because the end just comes. If you want to do a Krypton show, you want to do it more as a
but isn't this the problem with prequels in general, though?
yeah.
You know, like they only serve to sort of spoil what we already know from the main properties.
Yes, exactly.
So I just think,
Although there's been well, you could do one on about Candor completely.
oh yeah, if you did like a tangent storyline, you know,
Yeah,
so it's sort of a prequel. It's the alternate side, what we didn't get to see. That could be kind of interesting.
yeah.
Um, the thing about Krypton. So just stepping outside of the fact that we're talking about comic book films is I don't know that we've seen tons of solid science fiction on TV right now.
That would be a good sci-fi if it was just a straight up sci-fi movie. I
But
mean,
that's also the danger is sci-fi tends to be just a little too high concept, and studios and networks get a little twitchy about it.
well,
Like if
well
it doesn't
the
perform instantly right out of the gate, they usually can it.
yeah the last good sci-fi and the best sci-fi and the best TV show till Game of Thrones was Battlestar Galactica.
Until the last half of the last season, and then it was
Okay,
Pegasus.
yeah, yeah, I know, but let's just call it. Let's just this.
The Pegasus storyline of Battlestar Galactica is some of the best TV that has ever been produced.
Yeah, yeah, man, that
That
show.
that is incredible television.
Do
I don't
they have it on
feel
Blu-ray at now? I think they do, right?
I don't know.
Because I mean, I loved watching that. I would go back and watch the whole thing again from the beginning.
And just stop at season four and a
Four
half.
and a half, yeah, exactly. I definitely agree because the way it ended, I was like, okay, the last two episodes they try to redeem themselves in the ending, but I was like,
And the last siege is kind of interesting. Like seeing a Battlestar actually go balls to the wall was
well,
was
yeah,
kind of cool.
it was cool. Yeah, it was nice. But
But but the tone of the show betrayed the tone of those last couple episodes betrayed what the show had originally been billed to us as, and
yeah.
we never got any satisfaction on the mysteries that were. I mean, it wasn't as bad as Lost, obviously,
Oh
but we
God.
never got a lot of those questions answered.
Um,
But so anyway, I'm sorry to because now I'm getting sidetracked again.
I
Because
know.
Lou Ryan about Krypton, my fear would be that science fiction just doesn't do well on TV in general. So even if we got an amazing show about Krypton, I don't know that that's a flavor of TV that people are really interested in
You know
on
that
network. It
that
would
is
have
very
to go
true.
on cable.
Cable, yeah, or maybe you do a Netflix deal for something like that. I think you or something, or HBO, one of those other.
It would
Uh,
just you would have to manage expectations in some way, and I think the Sci-Fi Channel isn't really giving me a lot of confidence right now that they could execute
mhm.
something like this right now. They're playing with reality shows, and I don't know what they're doing with their channel lineup right now. So I don't know who could pull off a Krypton show well. I don't know what studio actually takes the reign and gives us something good. But then, regardless if they did or not, I'm not sure audiences would watch it.
Well, it's what's his name is on the helm of that David Goya, and he has very good relations with Showtime. And I'm just saying like a place where it would go to.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be a place just because he's giving them a show now with Da Vinci that's on I think the second or third season coming up. So
Right
uh
on.
yeah, that's probably a place you probably would pitch it to at least to get some traction. Majani says I agree, Juan. Yes,
So
yes.
she was probably talking about my hatred of Man of Steel.
No, she
So
wasn't.
she was probably agreeing with
She
that
wasn't.
and everything else that I've said throughout the
Because
whole course of this
because
podcast.
Majani loves Man of Steel in the first place.
I'm pretty much right about everything.
No, no.
But we don't have to get too bogged down in that. We've got
No.
one more comment from
Yeah,
Michael.
Michael says, I'm not sure if superhero movies will reach a burnout for two reasons. One, the nerd fan base is so damn big, and two, because actors being used it make non-nerds jump the bandwagon like Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. So he's basically saying the actors they're pulling for some of these movies are bringing, of course, non.
Now, Mike, up to this point, you're absolutely right, and that's why I've been so excited about what Marvel has done with their superhero lineup and getting people on board, characters that maybe aren't quite as a team as the Superman, Batman, Spider-Mans of the comic book universe. But just having worked in Hollywood and having produced stuff that you'll probably never see, what I worry about is the sustainability, because with every popular superhero film that comes out, it means studios and analysts expect the next film to be even more popular than that.
Yeah.
So even if you have an incredible, like an amazing, let's say Fantastic Four, you have an amazing Fantastic Four film. If the box office doesn't line up with the unrealistic expectations of the studio, even if it makes its money back, it'll still be considered a flop, or it'll still be considered something that performed poorly.
Well, Fantastic Four was going to be hampered by us, people like us. The reason
No,
I'm saying that, I mean, the reason I'm saying that is also just
right.
because, you know, we already are going in with very low expectations, even though some of the things I'm hearing now sound a little bit more positive. So, but then again, I think studios are probably going to drop, at least for movies like that. I think studios need to start bringing the expectations down a little bit more.
Right, but what also do we know about Hollywood? And they're not able to do that. You're absolutely right. That's what they need to do, and I think we also need to see sort of an ebb and flow. Like, I would love to see studios in general start looking at major tentpole films and then putting money behind very low budget fare as well. Like, I don't think a Black Widow movie needs to be a blockbuster.
No.
I think it needs to be a lean, mean, like 110-minute movie, espionage, spy thriller, very noir, and you could make a phenomenal film on the cheap to keep the
Oh,
Marvel universe humming on
you
that
just
level.
reminded me of this, and it's part of all the DC stuff I heard too. Was did you ever hear of the David Goyer script for Green Arrow called Supermax?
No, I don't think
Supermax
I.
was almost greenlit, and it was actually the reason why it was almost greenlit because it was also a very contained movie. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Basically, Supermax is a Supermax prison for all the villains, like lots of villains, and somehow I can't remember where it was. Green Arrow landed there, and he is fighting his way out. It's just a very close, set, tight, and they are looking at that again and saying, you know what,
Oh,
if we
do
could
it. Do the raid with Green Arrow. Just do it.
yeah. And I was like, okay, yeah, that definitely could work, you
No, I
know.
mean seriously, like that I think is the perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is you look at a movie like The Raid, and you're not talking about an unreasonable budget to make an amazing action experience.
Hmm.
And so if you have the right property, and I think Green Arrow is an excellent character to throw into a situation like that, where for 90 minutes, Dread 3D,
Yeah, exactly.
perfect example of doing that same thing. We're locked in this building, people are trying to kill us, I got a badass gun, let's tear some shit up. And in 87 minutes, I'm done with my popcorn and I've had a phenomenal time. And you didn't have to waste any of my time. You didn't have to give me any exposition. You didn't have to explain or have him struggle or learn something or find that special piece of his soul where he could hope again. No, nothing. It's just Dread for 90 minutes, killing a bunch of people, and I had a blast. So I think that's kind of what I mean. And so Mike, to again, short story, incredibly long. That's where I get worried because we keep kind of hinging the entire industry on these tentpole films, and we're making more of them. We have Fox and Sony and Warner Brothers and Disney Marvel all jumping into this pot to try and get a finite amount of money out of customers' pockets, which means at some point these movies are going to start under delivering on these analyst expectations, which means that they're going to also start flopping even if they're wildly successful. So
Yeah.
that's where I get nervous, and that's what I mean by approaching burnout. Because you're right, the fan base is going to follow, and until you start making bad films, which I don't see anyone going out of their way to try and make a bad film.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we're
Majani
there,
said
but us geeks only have so much money to give.
exactly. Majani, she laughs, and she's probably laughing because she agrees with me, and
But
she needs
she
to,
didn't disagree with me. No, no, no. You're reading a lot into a
no, no,
laughter,
no, no,
my
no,
friend.
because
You're like,
no, no, no. You know why? Because she's nice. She's That's the problem. You know, she's nice, and she's like, you know
yes,
what?
she's too nice to tell you how wrong you
No,
are,
no, she's
is
too
the
nice.
problem.
She's too nice to actually tell you that you're being quite useless. Lou Rod says Netflix deal works into Civil War. Do you agree?
I hope so.
Yeah, I would hope that that ties in, and
And for
the
exactly what I'm saying, I think it's a great place to put side content.
exactly. And then Mike Baird says, good point. I agree with the low budget thing. Stop promising us big blockbuster movies.
Well, and it's really and this is where, because we're big fans of this media. I mean, obviously, we're doing this late night podcast to talk about it, but this is about making money, and I want to see all of these communities making money. That's I want to see them performing well. It hurts my soul when a Spider-Man movie doesn't do well at the box office because I want more Spider-Man movies.
Well, it did well. It just didn't meet those expectations we were
But
talking
that's
about.
that's where we get really cranky, is because we can show a movie make back its budget, make a turn a profit, and then still be considered a flop.
Well. I think the problem with Spider-Man was a little different. Not because I think it was two things. It didn't make its projection of 1 billion, right? But I think the bigger thing is because Sony is in such trouble as a parent company that that also plays into it more than anything else because other than PlayStation, which even still made some losses, like the movie division is the only place that truly makes money for them.
Right. And I mean, like, I look at Spider-Man because I was totally wrong about Spider-Man. I actually thought Spider-Man was going to be the stronger performer over
Yeah,
Days of Future Past.
we were all
I,
wrong.
I, I really did. I really thought that X-Men was going to be the weak link of the summer. But regardless, we did have one weak link in terms of meeting expectations and also just delivering the satisfying movie-going experience that I think fans of this media were looking for. Not to say that Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, wasn't a good movie, but it didn't rise to the level or rise to the standards that we've seen from. In fact, I'll even put this out there. I liked Man of Steel better than Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that hurts because
Wow.
Man of Steel is awful.
Wow. Okay. Let me put it in perspective for you as to where Amazing Spider-Man is. Amazing Spider-Man is much better than Iron Man 3 2 combined.
Okay. Well, if
I,
you're combining Iron Man 2 and 3, then you're ending up with half of a good movie.
so,
No, because I actually really liked Iron Man 3 for all the problems that story obviously has. But Amazing Spider-Man 2, um, it's
you see, okay, Amazing Spider-Man 2, the one parts, the things that I liked about it were the chemistry between, what's his name? Andrew
Garfield.
Garfield and his real life girlfriend, which showed on
Right.
screen. So it was great to see that Gwen Stacy Spider-Man relationship. And I also like the fact that I like the way she died in the movie too. Sorry, I don't know, that sounds so
Well,
bad.
but also, I mean, I think the problem is that the movie is such a cluster
Of
of.
other things
It's a greatest hits sampler of Spider-Man moments. It's not a cohesive film,
yeah.
and that's sort of the opposite problem that I had with Man of Steel, where I just don't like where they took the Superman character at all. But they gave me everything that I needed to flesh out the intro to that character. So, like, I have problems with both those movies on polar opposite ends of the spectrum of why I might not like a movie. But anyway, so because we don't need to go down that path too far. But I'm bringing it up as
That is why I'm laughing. I'm not saying anything.
yeah. But I'm bringing it up though as that part of that conversation that a couple weak links in a particular movie going season will reflect poorly on the whole industry.
Hmm.
And so it only takes a couple flops and legit flops, not like, well, it made its money back and it kind of kept the franchise alive and it did turn a profit. I mean, like a serious flop, one or two serious flops, and I think studios get really gun shy really quickly.
Oh yeah, I think they do, but the good thing is we didn't get any flops this year.
No.
Spider-Man was more of a expectation flop. It made a lot of
Okay.
money for the studio, so
Yeah.
that's fine. And then we also got some surprise hits like the Days of Future Past, and then
Yeah.
we got a
Well,
huge surprise with Guardians of the Galaxy.
and where I was not expecting Days of Future Past to be an entertaining film. Again, a lot of problems and a lot of issues with the movie, but a genuinely entertaining experience when I'm sitting in a crowded theater full of other comic book fans, and my wife, who was a huge fan of First Class, she loved X-Men First Class. That actually got me in line to be a little hopeful for Apocalypse. Apocalypse is my all-time were one of my all-time favorite comic book villains. It's like Venom and Apocalypse are like super high on my list. So if you're telling me you're actually gonna make an Apocalypse movie, I'm stoked. You've got my money. I want to see it. It better be awesome. It better be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you there. I mean, but then again, you know me and the X-Men franchise. Like there's nothing worse in comic book movies than the X-Men franchise, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care how bad
Well, because
it
at its best,
was.
it's because because you're not wrong in terms of what we like about what they're doing with Justice League
Yeah.
in bringing together a team. What I love about what Marvel Disney has done in making the Avengers a team, at their best, a good, with the exception of First Class, at their best, a good X-Men film has basically just been a good Wolverine movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which doesn't, it's not a team. You haven't brought people together. They haven't solved problems together. It's been like, Storm, make fog so that I can slice someone with my knives because I'm Wolverine. And on that note, I think I'm starting to get a little loopy, which means you got to be wiped out there on
Yeah,
the East Coast.
it was a long day. I had no, seriously, it was like I had the droid event, and then next minute
Right on.
I'm coming back to edit, and next minute Marvel's announcing like all these bazillion things. I was like, ah, right. Then I had to go and do another event, and then Agents of Shield stuff. So it's been interesting and fun. Now this is the thing. Now because I want to ask you this question, and I probably know the answer, but because we are now in a state of war between Marvel and DC with
Hmm.
announcements and press, and also since DC also said they're spending $2 billion every year
Hmm.
for marketing and all that. DC, hey, if you need some of that help, we are very good at that stuff. Yeah, okay, we give out marketing tips and advice. This time, you just have to pay a little
And
bit.
we work for cheap too. We're pretty cost effective when you think about it.
Exactly. Do you think there's going to be a DC announcement, as rumors have been suggesting that we will get a trailer with a Hobbit at this point?
I would actually be surprised if we didn't see a teaser, but I don't think it's going to be as fully fleshed out as what we saw with Age of Ultron. Because
Oh
I
yeah, I know.
don't really
Yeah,
think that they intended to put out as a trailer what we saw from the Comic Con uh, uh,
clip.
tease.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we do, I think it's going to be a bit more esoteric. It's probably going to be a little quieter, a little bit more about messaging rather than showing us finished photography from the film. But I'd actually be pretty surprised if we don't see a response soon.
Okay, I think I agree with you. I think we will see something. I think it would be that scene. Because I think that's the kind of scene that gets your fan base fired up. At least, it's gonna be at least a full year after that, right? After The Hobbit, it's gonna be at least a year plus, right? A year and like 4 months
Well,
after
the
that.
reason why I think they have an opportunity here, again, this is something that I think DC has actually done better than Marvel in terms of banking on established intellectual property, the established IP of a character like Superman. Think back to those early teases for Man of Steel.
Yeah.
We didn't need to see anything from that film. They made a
Right.
little mini movie about hope in America and apple pie, and it was amazing. Seriously, that is one of the all-time best movie teaser trailers I think that's ever been produced. It's up there with the teaser for The Shining because it's all about the feel of the film that you're going to see.
Yeah.
But they didn't need to show us anything about the film. So that's where I think they have an opportunity to do something with Batman v Superman that Marvel can't quite tap into that same kind of messaging. There's just not that same relationship between the fans of that media and the properties that Marvel has on tap.
So
So
I guess we're gonna just see Bruce Wayne running around saving people. in
I think you have a wonderful opportunity to do something with voiceover and show contrasting elements of darkness and light
Yeah,
that
true.
can come to represent those two characters. And you could do something so simple and so beautiful with that kind of messaging. And we'll all know. We'll all know. From the most diehard comic book fan to the most casual fan of the films, they will totally know what those characters are, what they're all about, and that they'll be stoked to see what future trailers come out. I don't think you need to serve us a frame of the movie. I don't think you
All
need to
right.
give us anything to have us lit up about Batman v Superman, just based on our emotional relationship with those characters.
Good point. Good point. Just two more things here. Mike Baird says, Juan, the stuff you produce, is it out?
Some of the things that I've worked on have been released. I think I'm in the ABCs of Death. I wasn't a producer on that, but I was a sound guy and an on-camera performer for Q, the letter Q in ABCs of Death. But most of the stuff that I work on is commercial and industrial. So I mean, I've done a little work for Toyota, but it was all internal, so you'll never see any of that work. And then I do a lot of casting for commercials. I'm actually doing a casting session tomorrow morning for some medical equipment that, again, unless you're really into the medical industry, you probably won't ever see what I'm working on tomorrow. So that's kind of my bag.
Yeah. And Liz Leroy has two more things. He says, oh, he just mentioned the studios are having problems with Sony and Fox. And he says, since B versus S movies coming out in 2016, do you think that it runs a risk of getting leaked when finished? No.
You mean like what happened with Expendables? Like
Yeah.
like a full movie leak? I don't think so. I
No.
don't know, but I doubt that that Warner Brothers is being cavalier with this film at all. I mean, it's going to take like a Mission Impossible style squad of hackers to get in there, or it's going to take one really disgruntled producer to like
Yeah.
walk away with footage to spoil that film.
It
And
has
and
to
I
be
think
somebody. It has to be somebody on that level, a producer level, who
yeah.
just literally takes it out. And
And if that happens, you know the response is going to be visceral. You know it's going to be bad.
yeah, it definitely will be. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us. I have to actually catch a bus back to Boston tomorrow morning, so yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Woo,
But
bus riding.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, thanks for joining our. This is a trailer review, right? This is
No, this was nerd chat galore. You can't even pretend, can't even front.
wow. Yeah, that
In fact,
was
you should change the title of this to just nerd chat galore.
I should. I'm gonna change that to Nerd Chat Avengers Age of Ultron. I'm serious. I'm changing it. I'm changing it to that. So,
Love it.
thanks for joining us. Thanks again, Juan, for joining us.
Absolutely.
I know it's getting late there a little bit. So, um,
I'm doing
anyway,
fine. I'm gonna go play some tower defense after this.
anyway, guys, don't forget to subscribe to our channels. Some Gadget Guy for Juan and Board at Work for me here, Thunder E, and saying thank you and always enjoy entertainment.
Bam.